a broad overview of the MRI techniques that could be potentially used in the clinic for detecting the so-called central vein sign, which is potentially a novel biomarker for increasing the accuracy of the MS diagnosis, which is still a recurrent problem in MS. The current imaging criteria are not specific enough, and therefore misdiagnosis is still an issue in the field. So the idea will be to potentially modify the MRI protocols that are currently used in the clinic to include novel techniques that allow to detect this central vein sign that might bring more specificity for the diagnosis of MS and therefore improve its accuracy. So the talk will basically review all these techniques that exist in the field in terms of standard product sequences. Unfortunately, none of them meet the criteria of being fast enough to be easily incorporated in the clinical workflow and sensitive enough so that you can be sure that you're detecting the central vein 100% of the time. So that's why I will present in the afternoon this second presentation, which is basically a novel sequence that we developed with, in close collaboration with the two major vendors of MRI systems to basically allow to do both, be clinically compatible so they can run in the hospital setting, but also have the high sensitivity to detect the central vein. And then there is a new also biomarker from the imaging patient at 7 Tesla, which is a very powerful 7 magnet that is now being more and more used, especially since it has received recently an FDA clearance for clinical usage. And from past studies at 70, we've found that there is a marker of chronic active lesions called the Paramagnetic rim that is nicely detected at 70, but we don't have yet a good technique to detect it at 3T, also with the same constraint of allowing a fast scan so that it can run in the clinic. So that sequence actually offered us other possibility to also detect those rims. So it's basically a 2-in-1 combo with the same technique, and potentially opens the door for clinical validation in large-scale studies where this technique can be deployed and actually used to measure those rims in patients. And that would be basically to allow clinicians to monitor the chronic inflammation in the patient's brain. So there's diagnostic application, but there's also more the monitoring, management of patient using that same technique on the clinical scanner.